Yo, what's going on? It's that boy Fred. Welcome back to another video. Now, today's video, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail right in front of you, we have another One Piece versus battle. And today we have a very anticipated one, being Law from the Heart Pirates and Zoro from the Straw Hat Pirates. Now, this is basically a captain v, I guess you could say, right-hand man, vice captain, whatever you want to call Zoro. But this is a very interesting versus battle in my opinion, because if you ask me, these two are like closer and a more difficult versus battle than rather me saying Luffy versus Zoro or Luffy versus Law, because in the anime, you know, for me, for the most part, I would think most people would know that Luffy's stronger than both of them. And if you want to check versus the Law part and you have an opinion on that Law, I would say just go back and do one thing for me, and that's watch or read Dressrosa, and I bet you that opinion will change. And if you care about the manga, honestly, I don't even know how you can even argue that's just a destroy. But anyways, for the most part, we're gonna be talking about anime only, because even though I'm caught up on the manga, there are some things about Zoro in the manga and kind of sort of Law too, but mainly Zoro, that I'm a little skeptical about. I mean, I'll give my opinion on the manga at the very end, but it won't be like, it'll probably be like 30 to a minute. Like, it won't be very long at all. It'll be just like a quick answer. But for the most part, we're going to be talking about anime only. So let's get straight into the video. All right, now getting this versus battle started, you know, I think we should go by the same format that I did in the last One Piece versus battle, which was the Oden versus Mihawk one, which is where I basically just broke the battle into easy sections that would be a lot easier for One Piece versus battle to be, you know, dissected, being raw cutting power and just flat out strength, and then feats, and then Haki, and then coming to a conclusion right at the end. And so I think that'll be the easiest way to come across this one. You know, as I say with a lot of One Piece versus battles, this is probably the easiest format to go by, since, you know, their feats are kind of iffy. But unlike Oden and Mihawk, these two have a lot more feats than both of them probably combined, because these are two, like, predominantly, I guess you could say, main characters at this point in the story. So, you know, I guess it's you know, it's good we'll start off with the right-hand man himself, Mr. Zoro. Now, Zoro, as we all know, his cutting power and his just strength altogether it's pretty high. Like, Zoro is really, really strong, because as we all know, you know, Zoro does the little things that every swordsman needs to do. He goes up in the sunny, you know, my boy weight lifts, he trains, he does all this and that. And, you know, Zoro's cutting power has actually gotten a lot better in Wano, because one thing only, and that's Enma. Enma is such a good thing for Zoro right now, bro. Like, that sword is so strong. Like, it's a graded sword too. It's like in the Mihawk in the Oden video, how I was talking about how Oden has 2 graded swords, and Enma is one of them, and now Zoro holds on to one of them. And so, you know, as we all know, Zoro has some intense cutting power himself, being able to basically split Pika in half, and Pika was humongous on Dressrosa. Like, he took up an entire mountain half. Zoro has his feet, even though it's not canon, of him cutting half of a boulder, Fujitori's boulder in half in the Stampede movie. He also has his other feats of just flat out just destroying huge areas with one slice. You know, when he came back from the time skip on Sabati, he cut a ship in half, which is, you know, not impressive that much, because, you know, we seen Mihawk do that way back in Briati. So, you know, it's easy, you know, to kind of get a good glimpse of what Zoro can and can't do, especially when it comes to his cutting power, because we all know that's top tier. Zoro's trying to become the world's greatest swordsman. Now, moving on to my man Trafalgar Law. Law's cutting power is a lot more difficult, and it's weird because, as we all know, Law has probably one of the more broken devil fruits in One Piece, being the Ope Ope no Mi. Room, man, that thing is very strange, because when we see Law, you know, back in One Piece, which is on Punk Hazard, we see him use, you know, of course he uses Room, and he basically picks up Smoker's ship, and he basically cuts that thing in half. Now, the thing is, I truly don't understand, because as we all know, like, him and that ship were like really far apart. So what I truly want to know is, was that Law's cunning power, or was that kind of the power of just the Ope Ope no Mi altogether. Not that it makes much of a difference because nonetheless he still did it and it is a feat for him, which we'll get into the feat section in a little bit. But I mean, it definitely still does apply for him. Now, Law's cutting power, like I just said not too long ago, is a lot more difficult to scale than Zoro because he doesn't really have as many like straight up just bare sword, not using room, just feats because most of the time he's always going to use room and then do something. So his cutting power is more so the Ope Ope no Mi, and then his sword just being there. And we also don't even know how good of a swordsman Law is. Like we can relatively say he's a good one. Like he definitely can't be bad. He's been wielding a sword for like some years now, so he definitely has some experience with it. And I don't know if I would say he's a better swordsman than Zoro. I definitely would say Zoro's still the better all around swordsman. But the Ope Ope no Mi makes up for that being so broken as it is. Now, going into the next section of the video, of course, being our feats section. With Zoro's feats, there is so many to choose from because we've seen Zoro do some big boy damage and some big boy stuff. Like I've said with his cutting power earlier about the Fujitora media, dicing up Pika. Zoro has a lot of different things you can really choose from because of course we're talking about post time skip. So you can bring up the fact that he absolutely demolished the drunken fishman on Fishman Island. On Punk Hazard, he absolutely destroyed the snow girl. I can't remember her name. It starts with an M, but he absolutely demolished her. Like I said again, like on Dressrosa, he absolutely demolishes Pika. Zoro, and most of the time, like it's like the complete opposite for him and Luffy. Luffy goes out there and tends to struggle with his fights for the most part, but Zoro, every time we see him, he goes out there and he struggles for a little bit, but there's not necessarily too many times you actually believe that Zoro will probably lose. And I feel like it's also because Zoro hasn't got like the most time the most like feats and just screen time as he could. I mean, he definitely is a very important character in the anime, as we all know, the first man to join the Straw Hat Pirates. So he definitely does have a lot more feats than probably the rest of the Straw Hats do, but just not enough to fully give him a lot to go off of. But like I said, from what he's done in the recent arcs, sadly he wasn't there on Whole Cake Island. If he was, I feel like that would have gave him a lot more feats because there was a lot of strong people there on Whole Cake Island. And if he was there, it would have definitely made a big, big, big difference. And now moving on to Law. Law is kind of sort of the same. Like these dudes actually have probably like worse feats than what I'm surprising. Like Corn on this video, I'm surprised that they don't have as like more feats than Odin and Milhawk do. Like Odin had more feats than both of these guys right now, from what I'm looking at. Like Jesus, it's a tad bit underwhelming, but that's neither here or there. Law's feats, as we all know, Law's probably his best feats probably come from either Dressrosa or probably Punk Hazard. I would say more so, it's kind of a mix of both because on Punk Hazard, we immediately see Law, of course, deal with the Marines as any pirate does of high tier. He deals with them relatively easy, but it's more important that he dealt with Smoker and the way he dealt with Smoker, basically easily just ripping out Smoker's heart, which is a very important thing later on because Law being able to poke people's hearts out is like really really good, and I wish he would use it a tad bit more, but I guess it doesn't. It's not as easy as he make it seem. Like at least in the way he made it seem in Punk Hazard, because he was popping people's hearts out apparently left and right because they had about 3-4 hearts out. But yeah, and then also his fight against Virgo was a big fight because we all know Virgo was kind of like Vice Admiral level. So was Smoker, and he dealt with Smoker pretty easily. But Virgo, I guess you could say, was probably a little bit stronger than Smoker. And he also was part of the Donkey family. So that's another feat for Law. And then once he gets the Dressrosa, he, soundly handles people like Turbo. And he has some cool stuff he does on Don Flamingo. Had Don Flamingo not had his freaking string fruit and been able to reattach his body, his organs like he did, Law's Gamma knife would have ended that fight off right then and there. And I truly wish it did. I wish it would have dragged on a little bit longer and then Law did that because I feel like that was Law's fight, man. It reminds me so much of the Goku and Vegeta versus Frieza in the Resurrection F. That should have been Vegeta's dub, and I always felt the same about the Law and Luffy fight versus Doflamingo. It should have been Law's dub, but got to get that MC his his moments. But that's neither here nor there. I think it's time that we get out of the feet section and we can move now into the hockey section. Now in hockey, I feel like for the most part, most of all of us can agree that Zoro has Law beat in hockey pretty good. Zoro's like really good at armament hockey. His observation hockey is decent, and not the even though I said I wasn't gonna talk about the manga, I want to throw this out there. There is a tad bit of speculation if Zoro may or may not have Conqueror's hockey. It's just out there because it's definitely some stuff in the manga that was shown, especially with him tagging Kaido and the way he tagged Kaido. It's pretty suspicious, and I definitely can't wait till it gets animated, because if I see that red glow like I did with Odin, then we already know what time it is, and this fight will go totally different. Because also I feel that even though Law lacks in hockey, I feel like the Opie Opie fruit just makes up so much for it. And it's like his hockey, as they have told us in the manga. Once again, I'm gonna speak on this, even though I said I wasn't gonna speak on it. Oh, sorry about that. They also said in the manga that Law's hockey is very, like he said himself actually. He said that with Room, he can't, like how he uses shambles. He can't really do it to people who have, like, I want to say, stronger hockey than him. And he was trying to do stuff like that to, like, I want to say Big Mom, but he just wasn't able to because he doesn't have a high enough hockey. But then that shows that Zoro definitely has superior hockey, because at least Zoro, it doesn't, let me not say it shows he has superior hockey, but it shows, signs of it, because Zoro was at least able to tag Kaido, and we later find out that Kaido was coding himself in Conqueror's hockey like most of all the time. And if Zoro was able to truly tag him like he was, that's why I said Zoro has that, it's a iffy when it comes to his Conqueror hockey in the manga, but we'll just have to figure that out when the time comes. And also, I think, with the little bitty hockey things I've gotten to, because most of them don't have really, especially Law, don't have a lot of hockey feats, I feel like we can move away from it and start going into the conclusion. Now, we're at the conclusion of the video, and I think this fight is definitely a really, really hard one to come into, because, there are so many ways this fight can play off, because it's hard to really gauge who's faster. But because, like I've said, like, One Piece speed feats are very hard to judge. It's hard to truly say who's faster or who has the better reaction time. I honestly want to give it to Zoro, but like, even though Law is, I would say he's just a tad bit slower than Zoro. I wouldn't even say Zoro's like speed blitzing him. Like, I don't say nothing like that. But even though Zoro probably is a tad bit faster, has a little bit more like raw strength than Law does, the Opie Opie no Mi makes up for more than that, because we all know Law definitely has the ability to easily, if he can land it from the looks of it, that if him and Zoro are fighting, if he pops Room and decides to just cut, it's definitely a possibility, he could just split Zoro's body in half, and now Zoro only has, half of his body, and Zoro, and then at that point, Law can, what, I don't know, pop his heart out, squeeze it, stab it, and that's GG's. Or, of course, Law could, not be able to fully get Room out, which, I mean, I find that hard to believe, because Law always finds a way to get Room out, because it's such a quick thing to do. Even in a heated situation, if he just backs up just a little bit, he'll be able to pull it off. Now, one thing I can say is that feat that I just said, it's not 100% valid, because if that was the case, then he would have did that to Doflamingo, which he wasn't truly able to. But at the same time, that comes back to the whole stronger hockey thing. If he doesn't have a stronger hockey than the person he might be using Room on, then maybe he couldn't cut Doflamingo in half. So that just might be a possibility. But then also you have Zoro, who it's going to be a lot harder to get the Law, because at the same time, Law can use shambles so much to move around. It's going to be really hard to kind of tag Zoro, especially since he's someone who doesn't really have the most. Like, well, let's just call it how it is. Zoro doesn't really have a lot of long range moves, which is what you're gonna kind of want to use on Law. And you want to use like because the long range moves will help you at least take his eyes off of just straight up knocking you out the way or something like that. Because if you have long range moves, they can definitely distract him. He can easily shambles them out the way, but that's just exactly what you want when dealing with someone like Law. You want him to try and use up room as much as he can, so he can waste as much of that energy. Because room, as we all know, does have a little limit on it, and it's so broken they had to throw a limit on it. He can only use it a certain amount of time, and I honestly can't remember how long Room does last, but if Zoro can, beat around the bush long enough and, Law ends up using up all, his rooms, then, that's going to be Zoro's dub, no question about it. That's how I think the fight could go down. If Law could find a way to, not let Zoro beat around the bush as long as he possibly can and not run out of room, I truly feel that Law will win the fight for the most part, because I find it way more likely that Law, for the most part, he's a lot smarter when it comes to fighting than Zoro. I mean, Zoro has more of a, I guess you could say, fighting instinct, but Law is more of a wiser and more intelligent fighter. So he'll definitely find a way around Zoro. And but if I feel, this is kind of a headcanon way that Law for some reason ends up using up all the rooms that he can, and then it's just a 1v1 with no devil fruit, Zoro's definitely gonna take that dub. But for the most part, I do feel like Law will win. When we're talking about anime only, but don't hear me out. Like I said, it still is a way that Zoro could win. It's very, like, it's so hard that, like, if you say either or, like, it's such a good argument for both of them that it's such a hard, like, this is such a hard video to make, bro. Like, cause I love them both, and like Zoro is like no, I'm not even gonna say second favorite. He is my favorite character. So to give him this L, it really does suck. But that's just the anime only. Cause we're talking about manga Zoro rips Law in half, and it's not even close. I'm sorry. Basically, all the stuff that I was saying earlier in the manga applies now, because Zoro now has this, he has superior haki. He has these potential conquers haki. He gets better with Emma. He is like progressively getting stronger throughout all these fights, and like Law is halfway nowhere to be found because he keeps going off and doing weird things. Like, I don't even know where Law is right now in the manga. He does so much stuff, and just like he pops up and then he leaves for like 3 chapters and he pops back up. And like, I swear I haven't seen Law in the past like 10 chapters, it feels like. Like, I don't know where he's at. Like, I want to say he might be fighting Big Mom, but I could have sworn that was Kid and freaking what's his name, Killer. But like, I have no clue where Law is. Like, not in the slightest. He might be beat up somewhere, if all I know. But yeah, for the most part, I do feel like manga Zoro does beat Law. Anime's Law does beat anime Zoro. Definitely can make a case for Zoro. I truly want to make a better case. Just give him that little bit of a budge. But I gotta be fair to both fighters. And that's just my personal opinion. Now, I think that's going to end off this video right here. It's a tad bit longer video, but, it is what it is. But, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please be sure to go down there, hit the like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.